Okay, we've got our first few people joining. And I think let's just give it a couple minutes before I hand over to you, Kerry, to kick things off. Welcome everyone. We're just going to wait another, let's say 30 seconds before we kick off. Thank you for joining. Okay, I think let's just get things rolling then. Welcome everyone. Welcome to this webinar hosted by the Sydney High All Boys Union. Today's session is going to be on consulting and financial services. We have a wonderful panel here hosted by Kerry, and I'll let the speakers introduce themselves, but thank you again everyone for joining. And I'd just like to remind everyone that we do have a chat and a Q&A function. So please send through your questions on the Q&A function, which we'll try to address live in real time. Okay, over to you, Kerry.
Awesome. Thank you, Arthur. Look, thanks for the opportunity to moderate today's panel. Really excited for this hour. We've got a great group of panelists here today. I'd like to thank the Sydney High Old Boys Union for putting this event together today. For those who have participated this week, this may be your first, second, or even third panel session this week. But for those that don't know, we've still got 3 more sessions next week. So I know you're in a very busy period of the year with exams. So thank you for making the time to join today. So without further ado, would like to say a huge thank you to today's panel participants, Jonathan Mather, Alex Zinzopoulos, and John Huang. Wanted to begin by asking each of you to spend roughly 5 minutes or so to talk about what you're currently doing in your line of work, and perhaps give a short description of your journey to where you are today. Jonathan, if you wouldn't mind starting.
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Kerry. Hi, everyone. So I guess a bit of an introduction. I was class of 03, so a while ago now, when I left Sydney Boys. I did a applied finance common accounting degree straight out of uni, during uni, sorry, and finished up in 2007. And then I moved on to the Grant Thornton graduate program in the audit team there. So that's where I kind of got my foot in the door with GT. So I was in the audit team for 5 years. That's external financial reporting audits. And then in 2014, I switched across to corporate finance, which is what I currently do. So my current role is a partner in transaction advisory services. And what that does is financial due diligence. So what we really do is advise clients on transactions. Those are usually mergers and acquisitions. So when a company buys another company, or when a company looks to IPO or list on the Australian Stock Exchange. Those are the 2 kind of areas that we focus on. So we have a wide range of clients here at Grant Thornton, private equity firms, corporates. And so yeah, as a partner, I was admitted to partnership 2 years ago. So I got a team that work with me and under me. There's around 16 of us in the TS team here in Sydney. Yeah, I guess I'm kind of charged with winning the work. So doing a bit of business development, trying out, going out, meeting people, networking, winning the work, and then leading the engagement as well. So making sure that, the quality standards of the firm are met. I might just, I think that's it from me, unless anyone has anything else particularly ask me.
No, awesome, Jonathan. Alex, do you mind sharing next?
Yeah, great. Thanks, Kerry, and hi, everyone. So I'm a tax advisor to tech companies and startups in Australia. And I suppose how I got to where I am today, I was in the class of 05. So a couple of years younger than you, Jonathan, but still seems like a very long time ago. And then probably like most of the guys, a lot of the guys that would be on this webinar, in high school, I was, I was always pretty good at maths, enjoyed the social sciences, business studies, economics, things like that. So lo and behold, I did a commerce degree. Didn't really know what I wanted to do though. And then, you do some of the first year subjects, you get exposed to economics and finance and accounting and statistics and everything else like that. And for me, just accounting clicked. As boring as they may sound, it really did just click. So I went into accounting, did a few graduate programs, business advisory, audit, all that kind of stuff. And then I ended up just getting a little bit, I suppose, a little bit bored with the usual accounting work. So I wanted to make the move across to tax advisory, tax specialization. And happened to join a team that did a lot of work in the technology sector, and been doing that for the last 7-8 years now. And what that basically means is, tech companies in particular, they touch on a very specific and very complex set of tax issues in Australia. So I help them with things like accessing the R&D tax incentive and government grants, setting up employee share schemes, raising capital, IPOs and exits, and some of the work Jonathan would be doing as well. So really enjoy what I do. And I suppose, one of the messages I kind of wanted to convey is that if you do enjoy commerce and accounting and social sciences, is that it really does set up a great base for you to go into a huge variety of work. And if you do have a passion in a particular industry, like for me, it's technology, going into consulting and financial services space can really set you up to work closely with a lot of those tech companies. So that's me in a few minutes.
Amazing. Thanks, Alex. John, would you mind sharing a bit about your journey and what you're doing currently?
Yeah, thanks, Kerry. So I'm also similar to Jonathan from a class of 2003. At uni, I studied actuarial studies and computer science. So I graduated in 2007. And that's largely because I was quite interested, both kind of like Alex said, I was good at maths at school, so good actuarial would be good. And I enjoy technology and computing, so I did computer science. I joined straight into the grad program at EY. Back then, I didn't really have a consultancy practice. I was working in the risk area. But over the course of the last decade or so, they grew a consulting practice and I moved into that. So at EY, as some of you may know, it's one of the big four accounting, tax, and consulting firms in the world. And we basically work with other large global and local clients to solve their problems. In my world, what I'm focusing on is data analytics and technology transformation. So what that means is, say, an organization may want to refresh their technology architecture or systems. They may want to implement new technologies. They may want to change how they do their business enabled by technologies. They want to move to the cloud. Then what me and my team would do would be to advise them on the strategy and architecture on how to do that, as well as supporting the delivery of those changes to ensure that they're actually getting the right outcomes from the investment that they will make. Yeah, so I'm a director at EY right now. We have the largest data analytics practice in Australia, and yeah, work with a number of different clients right now in the financial services sector.
Awesome. Thanks for sharing that, John. I realized I didn't introduce myself. So I'm Kerry from the class of 2008. I studied a Bachelor of Commerce at the University of New South Wales, and a lot of the experiences that Jonathan, Alex, and John have shared today are very similar to what I embarked on. So I did a cadetship at PricewaterhouseCoopers whilst I was studying at university, then went on to work in banking, before moving on to do sort of M&A and strategy at a corporate. Had a crack at my own tech startup as well. So I think this particular panel session, consulting and financial services, has a very it is very, very near and dear to my heart. So I guess moving on from that, I know that we touched on what we studied at uni, but I guess, and I know Alex touched upon it himself as well when he was giving his initial introduction, but how did you decide what to study at uni? Obviously, like if you were obviously, a lot of the boys that are attending today are considering business or commerce degrees, but within business and commerce, there are obviously a lot of different majors and specializations that they can choose as well. So, open question to the entire panel. How did you decide what to study at uni, and how did you make this decision?
I can probably lead off there. So I guess for me personally, as Alex mentioned, I was pretty okay with numbers and maths in high school, and had a general interest in business from doing economics during high school and things like that. So I knew I was going to go into business. I knew I wanted to be involved in numbers. So accounting and finance seemed the logical option for me.
Awesome.
Yeah, and I touched on it earlier. Like, I think we all like numbers, to be honest, right? I think most of us do. And it's like I always knew I was more in the natural sciences space more than, say, the arts. So I wanted to do something that's math-based. So actual studies was something that was commercial and not purely become a pure mathematician or something. And then I was a gamer. All the way through high school, I liked computers. So I want to do something techy as well. So computer science.
Yeah. And I just knew I wanted to do something with numbers and business, and being able to be client facing and speak to people rather than just sitting behind a desk all day.
Mm-hmm.
But still, that just sort of got me to commerce. I had no idea from there what I wanted to do. And because commerce is so broad, I just thought it'd be a good opportunity a good place to start.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I agree with you. I think, given commerce is such a broad degree, in many facets, a great generalist degree, so many different career paths open up, following the completion of your degree. I guess the next question I want to pose to the panel is, obviously at Sydney Boys, you were exposed to a vast range of extracurricular activities. Going to university and studying business and commerce, you would have been exposed to a huge number of extracurricular activities as well. So would you mind sharing, some examples of some extracurricular you did at university, and how that sort of shaped you and helped you to get to where you are today?
I guess I can lead off again there. So the main, in terms of university, the main extracurricular thing that I did was Macquarie University at the time. I'm not sure if it still has it or not, but they had a thing called the Global Leadership Program, which was a really good program in terms of there was a lot of seminars and events run to really give a global view of I guess the workforce and how things are working. And the biggest thing I got out of that was I was able to go on a semester abroad when I was in university. So I went to Dublin, Ireland for 7 months in my final year of uni. And yeah, that just, more probably personal growth is probably what I got out of that, more as opposed to any kind of academic or growth from that. But yeah, definitely a lot of growing up. My first time out of home, I was living in Sydney and then going to Macquarie University. So I was still living at home with the folks. So it was my first time out in the big bad world alone. So yeah, just even generally the whole the exchange program at universities run is a great program. So get you out there, meet new people, and just see even the different courses on offer at different universities. It's a great exposure. So yeah.
Look, I don't have anything anywhere near as exciting as that. In my scenario, I reckon there was probably 40 other people from my year that went to UNSW and did a commerce degree as well. So I was lucky enough that a lot of my closest mates came with me on the journey as well. That just made uni life a hell of a lot easier, because it was easy to get introduced to new people via your existing friends already. That obviously opens the doors to different social clubs and academic clubs and all that other stuff that you can get at uni. For myself, I pretty much I started working straight away once I got into uni. So I was lucky enough to get a internship or a cadetship at just one of the local accounting firms where I lived. So I was pretty much I was working at an accounting firm probably 3 or 4 days a week, straight from semester one, and doing full-time uni as well. So that kept me busy.
Yeah, and for me as well, I think I went to UNSW, and I think probably in our grade, we had probably more than 40, probably like 50 or 60 that went to and did commerce at UNSW or science. Yeah, like I think the biggest thing for me really is uni is quite different to high school. Because high school, a lot of stuff is kind of engineered for you, right? There's a structure and everything. And uni is the first time you kind of go out and you can really decide on how you spend your time. Who do you want to work with or communicate with and connect with? And it's really a massive increase in kind of scope of the people that can make connections to, more senior than you and more junior to you, and so on. And really meet different people with different backgrounds and so on. Some of my closest friends right now, we actually met during uni, right? So I think it's a really good opportunity to build your network, really expand your horizons, and just meet people from different backgrounds and different interests. Like I said, there's a number of different clubs, societies, and so on. I've been involved in a few, but to be honest, none of them really stood out to me as saying this is a clear mark of, this is something that's awesome. As much as, I would love to have gone on an exchange program like John. But like I said, the biggest takeaway for me though, is just meeting so many more people and really expanding your horizons. One other thing I would say that is in my current role, being leaders within my firm, we do a lot of programs with universities. And those are some of the things I wish I probably have been involved in when I was a student. But I mean, there would be good opportunities for many different companies, firms, and other industries that would reach out to unis and host events and host conferences, meetup groups, and so on and so forth. That probably more relevant today than it would have been in my time.
Awesome. No, thank you, everyone. Jonathan, you stole a little bit of my thunder there with the exchange, because I was going to mention or ask that question. But look, appreciate you sharing, the exchange element of your university life. I was lucky enough to go on exchange as well, and to date, it's probably still one of the top 3 sort of periods of my life. And yeah, like Alex, I did a cadetship as well. So, it was a battle just to try and juggle 3-4 days of university with the couple of subjects as well. But I think, generally what I hear from all of you is that your university experience is what you make of it. There's not as many contact hours doing a full-time commerce degree compared to a 10 unit or 12 unit workload in year 12. So, it's really about, I guess, the initiative you take. And as John alluded to as well, plenty of programs, internships, cadetships out there. I guess, with that, I want to move on to the next question. What would your advice be to students wanting to study business? Would you try and go down an internship route? How would you go about looking for them? And I guess connecting with people?
I'm happy to lead this one off, and it sort of touches on to maybe your previous comment, Kerry, about university and how it's different to high school. I think, and what you make of it is, you've really got to understand that university, there's no one there to hold you accountable and hold your hand and make sure you've done your homework. So that can be very different compared to year 12 where you've got all these deadlines and constant checking in and seeing where everything's up to. And that can take a bit of getting used to, but that's the way the real world operates. You've just got to have that fire and drive from within. And if you don't have that, you might find university a bit more challenging. So I just wanted to make that point. You find out pretty quickly that the onus is on you to keep up to date and do the work and make sure you're doing well in the course. But look, in terms of getting out there and finding connections and finding internships. Look, it's that age-old joke, isn't it? They want someone who's like 20 years old with 20 years experience, right? Which never happens. But what I did was, when I just started, I reached out to all the big accounting firms because they've got all their vocational and internship programs, and they're pretty good. I don't think they would really expect you to have experience at that stage. So I just applied to a bunch of different ones. If you know anyone there that can make a warm introduction for you, that might carry a bit more weight. But just put yourself out there, find out what you're interested in, and reach out to those businesses to see what opportunities and roles they have, because they do have them every year.
Yeah, I think on the other side, when I'm hiring for interns or grads or things like that, the actual specific work experience in that field is probably not necessarily something that's a key criteria. We're probably looking for instead is really just, how, I guess, balanced or adjusted you are. Have you been doing different things? Have you taken on leadership position? It doesn't have to be, for study or for work, just any activities, right? You've built connections, you're able to bring people together, you were able to achieve things in whatever field. It could be something like, you are a champion equestrian, right? And then that's the hours you're putting in, that's organization. Those are all things that we look for. It's more about the personality and the drive and curiosity that we look for, as opposed to you must have gone through 3 different, let's say you want to be in accounting, you have 3 accounting jobs, right? That's not necessarily what we look for.
Yeah. I think the main thing I'd probably just say if someone looking to embark on a career in this is just to keep an open mind. I think both all 3 of us on this panel at the moment, or 4 of us on this panel at the moment, are doing something that we didn't start doing. We all went into graduate roles. I was in audit. I think, John, you're saying you're in insolvency. Alex, you were doing business advisory audit as well. And then we all found, I guess, what we want to do as the career goes. So your career kind of takes its turns as you go. You don't have everything figured out when you start. So just kind of trust in that, as long as you're and I guess that question on, internships. I mean, I didn't do an internship. I did the graduate program. I think my personal view is that it's a bit of a horses for courses thing. I think some people get a lot out of the cadetship programs. For me personally, I probably wouldn't have got that much out of it. I enjoyed my uni life. So, and that aspect as well. But, I can see some, when we bring in cadets through our programs, the ones that, really make it out and really career, goes off, and the other ones who kind of decide a year or 2 in that it's not for them. So just, go in eyes wide open and make that decision based on how you want it. But I think to Alex's point, in terms of you can use, I guess, the existing networks that you have in there, as well as, all the firms have pretty open and transparent policies in terms of cadetships and graduate programs. Just on mute, Kerry.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate your responses. Very enlightening. I have follow-up questions to all these answers, but before I ask these follow-up questions, just thought I'd clear some Q&A first from the boys. Maybe just one person to answer each of these questions, that would be enough, I think. Is it manageable to get and do what you guys are all doing without having studied commerce?
Well, I guess from my perspective, I did an accounting. I went into an accounting firm as an auditor, and then I'm a qualified CA, so I needed to do an accounting major.
Yep.
Just for me, in consulting, not in audit, not necessarily in tax, but in just consulting, you don't have to have an accounting or commerce degree.
Yeah.
And then for me, it's I do a few different things. So if I'm assisting businesses with government grants like the R&D, you don't need a commerce degree for that one. But if you're doing the tax side of things, then yeah, you do.
Yeah, awesome. Again, to the panel, what is your definition of interested / good in maths? Were you guys Extension 1, Extension 2 students, and did you enjoy the maths material in year 11 and 12? And I guess an add-on to that, how relevant is this math to a general commerce degree?
Not very. I wasn't an extension 2 or 4 unit maths guy. I was a 3 unit maths guy. As I said, I was good with numbers. So I recall a lot of extension maths with formulas and, and things like that. And so, yeah, but when you get into, I guess, my interest was numbers and even and business and finance work as opposed to the extension maths. So yeah, I guess when I say do we have an interest in maths, that there's that interest in numbers and how it works, and I guess that bit of that analytical mindset. Without having to be, you know, a 4 unit guru.
For sure.
Yeah. They say, look, same with me. Like I was good at it, but then again, so was probably more than half of the year at Sydney Boys, right? So always good at it. And what I use today, I don't remember all the different bloody calculus and algebra and all that stuff. It's more just helping businesses with budgets and cash flows, and sure, there's a few tips and tricks, but I always enjoyed it. But in terms of the stuff you're probably learning at like I did 3 unit, the stuff you're learning in 3 unit, you'll probably won't use it that much if you're looking to go down to into a commerce degree. I don't think, except maybe for some of the more specific stuff. John, I don't know if you're still using a lot of that in your role.
I mean, if I was a practicing actuary, I'd say yes, right?
Yeah.
If you're doing actuarial studies in a commerce, so actuarial studies major in a commerce degree, then I'd say 4 unit is critical. But anything else in commerce, another one I'd say would be econometrics, probably the other aspects to that. But other than that, probably not, right? Like I think in a consulting world, it's more about rational thinking and problem solving.
Yeah. So
like the structure and math and numbers, etc., provide and logics around that. That's probably the thing that's more important than the actual specific memorizing the conics formulas and differential equations and stuff like that. That's probably less so.
Yeah, it's that practical, isn't it? It's that critical thinking and being able to apply it. And I don't know if like STEM is being taught at Sydney Boys or not, but it's just don't look at everything in isolation. It's use your maths in conjunction with all your other disciplines as well.
Yeah,
for sure. And I think a big part of it is I mean, I'm using a phrase you guys might cringe at, but the term commercial acumen and commercial awareness. I think just thinking in the shoes of the company maybe you're consulting for or trying to help, that is more important than, you know, understanding the formulas or doing the math.
Yeah, I mean, in the actual workforce, there's, you know, a lot of, I guess, tools and macros that are being run through. All the maths is happening behind the scenes in terms of the analysis and things like that, in terms of the data. So luckily we don't have to sit there with a calculator to do it.
For sure.
I think the most important part is combining the analytical mindset. So it's like asking the right questions, and that's combining acumen, understanding the business, understanding the human behavior and psychology, and then look for the data and etc. to back that up, right? And like John said, there's many tools and stuff that will accelerate that for you.
Yeah.
Yep. Awesome. I think something that the boys are very keen to hear is, you know, to hear you guys talk about is a day in the life of, especially at I guess at the junior level, whether you're an intern or an incoming graduate. So maybe, you know, I'd like to ask each and every one of you, you know, what typically you'd expect interns and grads to do, and the type of expectation that you have on their, not only their, I guess, output, but in terms of their soft skills and their behavioral outcomes as well.
I can probably lead off. Or John, do you want to go?
No, go for it. Go for it.
Sure. So I guess when we have a brand new associate, is what we call them, joining our team, the main things we would look for is there's commercial acumen, business acumen stuff, which we try to filter out when we hire people. We do a case study when we hire people at all levels. The second thing would be good with Excel. We do a lot of spreadsheets and modeling with Excel. So I'd probably recommend anyone who's kind of going into that field to kind of really in uni, do any of those IT courses or Excel courses you can to really build that up, because I think at least any accounting finance role, kind of you live in a spreadsheet at the beginning of your career until you come out of it. And then it's the general, I guess, like the personality, right? Because I mean, we and I think Alex touched on this as well. We don't just sit at our desk in the office. We go and interact with clients, and you do that from day one. So you need someone who's got that confidence and ability to communicate effectively with clients and people outside their team, because you're kind of out and about the whole time. So it's really that interpersonal skills as well.
Yep. And look, I can add to what Jonathan said. So there'll be, people will come in and sorry, my kids just come home from daycare. When we're looking to hire people, the interpersonal skills are just really important. So obviously they get vetted to make sure they got half decent grades at uni, but what's really important is how do they present themselves? Would we be happy putting them in front of a client? Because similar to Jonathan, from day one, we have them in client meetings. They're not sitting behind a desk. We want to make sure that they can speak comfortably and handle themselves well. That's really important. And then the rest of the stuff that they do behind the desk is, well, sure, there's some Excel stuff. There's a bit of analysis of law as well, and using different computer systems. And a lot of that's just on the job training.
I think just generically, from just add to everything that's been said, I'd say there's probably a separation of technical skills and then just general consulting skills. The technical skill will be very specific to the different and there are different fields from technology to business. But the general consulting skills, absolutely everything that with John and Alex said. But the other thing I'd add would be we look for curiosity. Like someone has to be curious to learn, because we know that whatever we do today or what you've learned during uni or high school is not going to be relevant in 10 years' time. So we want to look for people that's continuously curious and is driven to learn. And just a day in the life, I think, in most big firms, you would be guided through the grad process at the grad. But yeah, you would be presented with clients straight away, right? So you wouldn't have to have a grace period where you're stuck in the office on a desk for like a few months.
Okay, great. Kerry. Yeah, great. I think, one of the funnest parts for me at my time in professional services in banking were these client interactions and the conversations that I'd have with the clients. And so I guess, wanted to ask you guys to share more about what your client relationships are like at a more senior level, but in particular, what your client relationships would be like at a junior level, at that associate level. What's involved, what's interesting about it, what's challenging, what's not so fun about these client relationships.
Clients are grumpy. I mean, but like the good thing about consulting, right, is if you're going to corporate, there's fairly structured hierarchy. But in consulting, even as a grad, you get access to very senior people on day one. And that's kind of why the presentation of that stuff people have said is quite important. But you learn by observing, kind of, especially when you're junior. Look at how your senior manager, director, partner, etc. Behaves and how they work with clients. So that initial period when you're just joining consultancy, that observational training is quite important. But I guess the flip side is that you get access to a whole bunch of people, C-suite people, potentially directors, senior management of companies. But the other thing I would also mention is thinking ahead, say 4 years time, you're joining consultancy. You will also obviously work day to day with the equivalent employees, the managers, the associates of the corporate firm that you're consulting for. those relationships is really important to build, because as you grow in your career, they will be growing as well, and they will be your future buyers and relationships.
It's a funny one, I guess, that client relationship. So I remember, like, in the audit, when I was starting off in audit as a graduate, you do get the whole mindset is changing, I suppose, from that finance team, because some clients didn't mind the auditors. Some clients were like, you're a bit of a pain in the ass, so I want to be out of there as soon as possible and try to fob you off with answers. So, but that's all part of the learning process and having to deal with that. I mean, it's not every conversation you have is pleasant. You do have to have hard, constructive conversations with your clients. So learning that skill set is important, even as you go up an organization, having to have, hard conversations with people in your team potentially as well. So how to frame those conversations is important with clients and with your team itself. But I think the main thing is, and I got told when I first got made partner, there's a lawyer at a firm that I could do a bit of work with, and he kind of just said to me, the only thing you do is you do the same thing that you always did, was make sure you do a good job. That's how you earn trust. Yeah, that's how you earn trust, firstly, in your team, and then with the clients as well. And trust is a benchmark for everything. It's where everything gets based off.
Yeah.
Look, for me, I suppose as a tax advisor and accountant, I get asked everything, and it's not even accounting or tax related. You tend to be the sounding board for any key business or personal questions that people have, and that's fine. That's just part of that, developing that long-term relationship with the client. I suppose now, when you're kind of at that senior level, your phone is just constantly ringing. You constantly get calls from clients, which is great. I love that. And then when you start off, it's just about building off, getting introduced to, at our firm, we will introduce everyone to the C-suite team. So there's no issues there from it. You have that introduction, and then as you develop that relationship, and I suppose as your bosses see that you're doing a good job, they're fine to sort of hand over the reins to some aspects of the job to you, that you can just go talk directly with the client, and then you take it from there.
Awesome. No, thanks for sharing that, guys. I guess tangentially to sort of what we've just discussed with the clients, have you, obviously you guys in your career to date have spent most of your time working for clients. You've had a portfolio of clients that you've advised and done work for. Have you ever considered moving over to the corporate side? What would your thoughts about joining corporate versus professional services be, for students who are graduating, and how would you think about that if you were in a university student's shoes right now?
Look, for me, jumping across to commercial, there's always usually a nice little pay jump, isn't there, for that. For me, I decided to stay in public practice in chartered, and the main reason for me was, what I love about my job is no two clients are the same, and no 2 days are the same, no 2 jobs are the same. I was a bit hesitant in going to work for one company and just only doing the accounts and everything for that one company, and having the same kind of monthly reporting deadlines and things like that. For me, I love the fact that on one day I'll be working on a company that's developed some new polymer for clothing, and on the next day they're using AI to do some sort of NFT blockchain trading platform. It's very different. So that was the key decision for me to stay in chartered.
Yeah, I think it's a well-trodden path when you first come out of uni to go into one of these larger or mid-tier accounting firms, because you kind of learn your trade really well with some of the industry specialists. But it is, again, after a few years, I never just decided from a very young age to go into, I wanted to be a partner. I went along with the flow of things, and it kind of happened for me. So I had considered going commercial. There was a couple of things that probably for me kind of triggered me to stay. One thing was, I did have clients a comment when I was second or third year in audit, and I was there for a total of 6 months. And to that point that Alex just said, like, every month end I was doing the same stuff. And I just couldn't do that anymore. Like I was doing the same thing like you do that for like 10 days and then you do a few other projects and then wait till month end again and you do it again. And for me, I was just like, well, I didn't get much value out of that. Whereas with professional services, and I think you hit a point in professional services consulting where you're just used to being on the go so much, like there's any point in time, I have 6 or 7 different clients calling me from different realms of industries, and you just switch from being, tech to mining to manufacturing, or like bang, 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 and bang. And as opposed to just being that one, I've kind of now tuned to that, and that's what interests me. I don't think I could be in a position now to kind of just stick with the one thing forever.
Can I just add? Sorry, I'll add one thing, and I'll let John speak. But what I've noticed in the technology space over the last few years is there's been kind of a morphing of your finance and operational roles as well. So FinOps is a term that gets used quite a lot. So I think businesses are starting to realize that you can't just look at finance in isolation and operations in isolation. It's a combination of the two. If I had my time over again, if I was a graduate now, that could be very tempting, and moving into something like that. So that will probably provide a variety of different activities and roles for people to do.
Mm-hmm. I think my two cents on that is, completely agree. That's why I stayed, I guess, in professional services and banking the whole time. I had a blast working with a huge variety of different clients, talking to different C-suites, and really just putting myself in their shoes and thinking strategically. So by no means am I an industry expert in any industry in particular, but I guess I know a little bit about every industry, which makes it pretty fun when I can pick up the Australian Financial Review or the Australian, and a lot of things that are in there make sense and are pretty pertinent to me. I think we've got a couple of Q&A questions that I just want to jump back into. They're a bit of a mismatch into everything, but I'll just roll into it. What were your working hours like out of uni and up until now? How flexible is it being an intern or a grad with working arrangements?
I think
Really depends on the.
Do you want to go, John? Or?
Oh, I was just saying, it really depends on the client, right? Like, I think especially less on probably it's a bit different on the audit side, but in consulting, really depends on the client, and depends on the work you do. I don't think there is a correlation between me getting more senior. There are more or less working hours. But I'd say as a grad, I probably worked anywhere between 40 to 50 hours a week.
Yeah. So, I think that sounds about right. I mean, it's, what is it, a standard 37.5 full-time week? No one in professional services does exactly 37.5 hours. You probably do everyone does a bit more. There's some people they'll do 50 or 60 hours a week, but I'm probably in the same bucket as you, John. I was somewhere between like 40 to 50, and it really does depend on the work. If you go into like corporate advisory, which is in all that transaction space, it's kind of feast and famine. You've got to work towards a deal, and you can do some really long hours and then you're quiet. Same with audit season as well. Other ones like business advisory might be a bit more steady hours.
Yeah, I guess my experience from audit, the first year as a graduate was around the 35 to 40 hour mark, and then it built up when you got to intermediate senior, and then you were doing the 50, 60 hours a week type stuff. And then when I moved to corporate finance, as Alex said, it is that feast and famine. Luckily for the last 2 years, it's been mostly feast, which means it's just a total just long hours, which you are working to strict deadlines most of the whole way through. So yeah, it will. You got to, I guess you got to have expectation that it's not a 9 to 5, and don't come in thinking it's going to be a 9 to 5. There's a lot of good times as well. I mean, you get quite a bit of flexibility. I think all the firms have, quite flexible work from home arrangements. We have that as well. We have what's called hybrid. So you come in a few days a week, which is important for team engagement and to meet people, but you can also work from home as well. You can see, I think all 3 of us are working from home today. So
Exactly.
Yeah, yeah. Most businesses should have that. My recommendation is, especially if you're a grad and coming through the systems, try to be in the office as much as you can.
Although I must say, it's been very difficult for current grads given COVID. I think it is very unfortunate. They've missed out on a lot of fly on the wall conversations.
Yeah.
Just being in and around the office, you're more privy to things. Sitting in your office at home, it's probably not as conducive to the fast learning and the diversity of conversation. But I agree with Alex that if you've got the chance, absolutely go in.
I mean, social interaction is a big part of professional services as well. Being around the team, and there's all the firms have are quite good with social engagements, drinks or events that they have on. So you want to make sure you have that connection with the people and the firm.
Yep, for sure. I've got two questions here. They're more, I guess, study related, university and tertiary studies. I'll combine them together, but would you guys recommend doing a Bachelor of Commerce or Economics if you're unsure about which one to choose, which one would you lean towards? And then secondly, did you guys do an MBA, and was it useful? Does that help you with management positions moving going forward?
I'm happy to start. It's I'd probably say commerce rather than economics, just because you get exposure to a lot more, I think anyway, exposure to a lot more different majors and opportunities for work. I've always thought of commerce as a great starting point or building block to take you into a lot of different job opportunities. NBA, I haven't done one. I'm struggling to think of any of the partners at my work that have done one. So I'd say they're definitely in the minority now.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think my understanding was commerce was a bit more rounded in terms of what the opportunities were in terms of where you wanted to major than economics. I could be wrong, but yeah, probably definitely do your research on that. I know from when I was looking at it back then, commerce was definitely a bit more put more options there in majors and things than economics. And what was the second part? Sorry, of the question.
MBA.
MBA, yeah. I actually was thinking about an MBA, and I talked to my cousin about it once, and her take on it, funnily enough, was if you're coming from like a finance accounting background, you probably don't need an MBA, because the MBA is more for like an engineer or a scientist who's now going into an administration role and needs to have an overarching view of I guess business. So yeah, I mean, I didn't need one. I don't know any MBAs in my firm.
Yeah, I think MBAs are also country based. I think in Australia, no one really cares, to be honest. And if anything, it's like once you hit senior levels, if you want to do an MBA, it's to build connections, right? You use it not to actually learn stuff from MBA, but to actually really build a network with other senior potential clients. And the work pays for it. But obviously in other countries, some of the MBAs are requirements to get into strategy consulting and management consulting, right? Like Bain, McKinsey, and BCG have different pay grades for MBA grads. But yeah, it's different for different service lines.
Yeah.
Commerce and economics, I think focus on the majors you want to do. Even, to be honest, you probably wouldn't even know, to be honest. I have no idea what I wanted to do when I was in year 12, to be honest. There is always flexibility for you to change. Nothing's set in stone. But I'd say focus on the subjects themselves rather than the degree. Degree is just a letter, and no one really cares, to be honest. But it's more about what area interests you and how do you get the flexibility to change if you find that something.
That's probably an important point. Nothing's really set in stone, so don't work yourself up into such anxiety that you're like, oh no, this is my whole life. It's obviously important decisions, but nothing's irreversible.
No, absolutely. I think to the topic of MBA, examples of where I've seen people embark on an MBA is, like John mentioned, when they're looking to transition their career. So, for example, if they got into a senior associate manager level in financial services and they really want that pivot, I think the MBA is a good opportunity for them to sort of hit that reset and sort of move into strategy consulting. But yeah, generally, I haven't done one. And yeah, I mean, I don't intend to. So I think the general consensus is that MBA mostly doesn't really matter. It depends what you want to do, with it. But I wouldn't just go and embark on MBA studies just for the sake of it, because it's not really that important. Another question, this is a funny one. How much could we be expected to earn in a first job, and then how does that progress over time?
Depends on the job.
Depends on the job. Like we said, commerce gives you can go into so many different roles to begin with. Probably Jen's, correct me if I'm wrong, but I would suspect that the consulting would be on the higher end. If you get a grad role at like McKinsey, BCG, Bain, they're probably paying pretty good money, and I think you'd be up to 6 figures in a really short period of time. If you're going into more accounting based, that's definitely on the. It's going to be less. It's not going to be anywhere near that. It's just so varied. If you put a gun to my head, and I'd say anywhere from like $55,000 or $60,000 to about 90 or 95, I think, kind of anywhere there for a grad role, depending on the role.
Yeah, probably a couple of things to recognize about professional services is that there is, I guess, a premium put on the experience themselves, which means that I think there was a point earlier on, if you went to commerce, if you went and worked at at a bank, for instance, or if you went to work for a company as an assistant accountant, you're going to earn more than potentially like as a senior auditor or something in an accounting firm. But the whole idea is that as you go up and up and up in a professional services firm, that aligns up more, and you get to a point where you are earning more in a professional services firm environment. So I think we start our graduates at around 60 something, 65 potentially. I don't know. It changes across teams as well, but and then then it's a matter of how far you go and where that goes. I mean, some of the top partners are pulling in like over $1 million. I look at that and I'm like, well, gotta get there one day.
I think not to be too philosophical, but I don't think it's, you should get too hung up about what your starting wage is. It's a bit of a cliche, but I think just be open and receptive to your learning opportunities. I think in your 20s, that's where you're going to learn the most skills, meet the most people, and you're encouraged to make mistakes as a grad, as an intern. It's expected of you. So, honestly, take that liberty and go make those mistakes, because once you're, in your 30s and you're, in your, 6-digit income, the expectation is a bit higher. So I wouldn't get too hung up on how much you're earning initially. The money will come.
Yeah.
I guess moving on to, another question to the panel. What would your advice to your year 12 self be today? If you could go back in time.
I'd say probably wouldn't be an uncommon one. Just do more, I suppose, get involved with all the different opportunities and programs and things that are available, especially that Sydney High has to offer, and keep in contact with your year 12 students. I'm on a few different WhatsApp groups here and there. Just form one, and if you haven't formed one, get someone to do it. If you stay in touch, like I think John made the comment earlier, that these are the people that are going to be referring your work and helping you progress your job as you get older.
Yeah, I think probably just echo Alex's thoughts there. I mean, enjoy year 12. It's fun, and it's that last, you don't really realize what you're missing out with school until you're out of there. So you have to go through that journey, but enjoy it. I remember spending a lot of time just hanging out with my mates. That was what year 12 was. It was always a bit of a study, so enjoy it. But yeah, so the thing that I would probably do, and this probably came back to when I went to Dublin, was just push yourself outside your comfort zone while you can. And university is a good time to do that, because it's still, I guess, within a framework. There's rules and stuff in place, but you can go out, try different things, and importantly, meet different people, because those relationships you form it's really set how you see the world.
Yeah, just do more. I think both of you said everything I was going to say.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I completely agree. Do more. I wish I had more time. You know, if you can go embark on a university exchange, like Jonathan over to Ireland, or like I did to Canada. I think the beauty of being in, consulting and financial services is that you end up with a skill set that is very malleable, very transferable as well across, the entire globe. I'm sure you've seen all too often many peers and friends move to London, New York, Asia, and it's pretty easy, because consulting is the same here compared to overseas. There's not too much difference. Whereas if you're practicing law or medicine, it's a bit more stringent. So I think that's one of the more beautiful things about being in consulting and financial services. I guess one more Q&A that we've come through. I want to ask your advice into networking. Maybe or maybe not cold calling, cold networking. How do you approach this, and who to approach?
Yeah, it's a good question. So I guess everyone has their own views on networking and business development, and how they go about that. The way I I wouldn't consider myself extroverted in any way. I don't like going to big conferences and handing out my business card to a lot of people, but I do consider myself a relationship builder. So I do catch up with people and form relationships over a time. So right now, my biggest referrers, I've been catching up with them since for the last 7 or 8 years. So I started catching up with them when I was senior associates managers type role, and as their careers have kind of gone up in their organization, so does mine, and then you end up having a mutually beneficial relationship. So you find what works for you. As I said, what worked for me was the slow relationship build. If it meant go and have a beer with someone every few months or go have a coffee with someone, that was what I did, and slowly built that relationship over time.
Awesome. Thanks. What are things like in terms of liability in consulting? What is the scale when it comes to making mistakes in relation to job security? Bit of a serious one here.
I don't know the context behind that one, but I mean, Kerry, you touched on it, right? You're expected to make mistakes. That's
true.
That's part of the job. That's how you learn. And if you're a grad and you're signing off on a piece of advice, I'd say you shouldn't be. There's someone there to help you. That's a non-issue for me. I've never thought about that.
Yeah, it's probably worth. Sorry, John.
Yeah, go on, John. It's probably more relevant for you as a partner.
It's probably worth noting that there's always QC processes, and people are going to be reviewing your work. So if you've made a big mistake, then 4 other people have also made the same mistake.
Yeah.
The only thing I would say is do the right things, right? Be transparent. Like there's a framework at any firm that is structure this process. Yeah. What could go wrong is if you hide that you've done something wrong, right? That's something that you shouldn't do. Just do the right. Be transparent.
Be ethical.
Yeah. Do the right.
Yeah. Just conscious of time. We've got one more question, which I'll answer, and then we'll throw to Arthur for closing remarks. But do you have any recommendation for exchange locations, or are they generally based on personal preference and where you want to visit? So I wanted to go to the United States because I wanted to visit a town where it was a college town and had lots of college sports. Unfortunately, I only made it as far as Canada, which was an amazing experience in itself. But absolutely, personal preferences for location, travel, even, the type of program that they're offering there. So honestly, I don't think you can go wrong at all. You're going to come back a much more well-rounded individual with a lot, more friends from overseas. So with that, just want to thank everyone from the panel for their time today. I wanted to thank every student and parent for joining our Q&A today, and I'll throw over to Arthur for final remarks.
Yep, thank you, Kerry, for moderating. That was great. And thank you again to the panel, Alex, Jonathan, and John. That was really fascinating. And I'll say just a fun fact. Actually, when I was at university, I interned at Jonathan's shop in in his audit division.
Uh,
So it's and I'd say it's quite funny. It's how the world goes around and turns. Especially, there's a lot of high boys out there. I actually interned at Grant Thornton with another high boy in my year, and we're both going to be on the banking panel next week as well. So, and he's actually a client of mine. So I'm at a bank right now, and he's actually a client of mine. So I would say definitely keep in touch with everyone. I think that's one of the key things here. And the careers, it doesn't really matter where you study or what you do. Everything turns around, goes around. You could be you could start do an economics degree, go into consulting, then go into banking, then go into public service. Those are career paths go all over the place. But yes, thank you for attending, and thank you again to the panelists. And just a reminder to the audience that there are 3 more panels next week, which we hope to see you there. Thanks again, everyone.
Thanks, guys.
Bye.
Thanks. Bye.
Thanks, Tom.